And it is another edition of CavsHQ Happy Hour presented by Budweiser. I'm John. He's Rafa. It is great to have you with us. Rafa, last two shows, baseball. We were gearing up for the baseball season, getting ready for the Indians. We had Jensen Lewis, Andre Knott. This week, basketball. Bubble games underway. Rafa, I love the product. I love what they've done. I love the way it looks on television. I'm more than somewhat surprised how well the play has been, considering the 4-month layoff. I mean, these guys are just ramping up, trying to get going after months of inactivity. And then that's before we even talk about the fact that over the last 3 tests in the NBA down there in the bubble, 0 positive COVID results. So far, I think it's been a tremendous, tremendous success over the first week or so.
You know, John, I agree with everything you just said 100%. But there's one thing, I hate the fact that I'm not just not there, but I'm not working a basketball game, a Cavs game. Before this whole thing started, obviously the whole thought was, is it going to work? Are the players going to be happy? How is this going to happen? Then, you mentioned the 3 test results and everything. But to sit at home and watch games and realize that the NBA is going on and all I had left to do is to be a fan, it bothers me. Even though I'm happy and thrilled that Commissioner Silver and on down in the NBA have hit it out of the park on this, I want to be part of it. Am I being selfish? I mean,
no, I went through the same emotions. I was so excited for it to come back. And I'm sitting there watching everybody else call games and thinking, what am I doing? I'm sitting on my couch for the 150th consecutive day. When you don't get invited to your own league's restart, yeah, that can feel not so good. It's funny, JB Bickerstaff echoed those same sentiments. He said, look, we got to watch this and say, next time the NBA has a party, we're going to be invited to that party. We need to be motivated by this. But I'm with you. It's been hard to watch at times because, you want to be there. You want to be in the action. And that said, I love what I've seen, Rafa. I think from start to finish, you mentioned Adam Silver, I think a ton of credit. We're not out of the woods, right? I mean, everybody has to continue to do what they're doing. But I think so far the protocols, the players, everybody seems to have bought in. And it's swimming right along, isn't it?
We're definitely not out of the woods, but we're in a situation where we just go day by day. We have been all our lifetime, but we just realized the fact that we're all day to day, right? But the fact that the NBA has really done an excellent job preparing for this and executing their plan, I think is wonderful. And the competitiveness of the game, of the product that they have been putting out there, of all that went into effect, into thinking of the arena field, the angles, the little things, even widening the sideline just because there's no fans, so they have to let the players know where the borderline is. I think it's just wonderful. It says a lot about the league, and I can't wait for the playoffs because, there's some battling going on. There's some spots like in the West, the 8th, and some seeding, but it's going to be basketball. Everybody that thought that an asterisk had to be put next to this champion, I think if they do it, it should be because it is very, very well deserved after all that they have been going through, a 4-month stop to get back into 60 mile an hour, from 0 to 60. It just speaks volumes of the athletes and the professionals that we have in our league, and also of the product that we're putting out there.
Somebody asked LeBron after they got drilled actually yesterday by Oklahoma City. He said, what they asked him about the game. They asked him about, his experience coming into that game. And he said, listen, I've been in this league for years and years and years. Never before have I been playing in August, clinched the number 1 seed, and playing back-to-backs, and have 8 games to get ready for the playoffs while we're all in a bubble. He said, so I can't help you out. I really don't know what to anticipate. I've never been here, despite the fact that I've been here forever, been through almost everything in the NBA. This is all new, and it's new to everybody, and how these teams respond is going to dictate a lot. I'm with you in the West. For those who aren't as familiar, there's the 9th place team also is included in the postseason in a play-in situation, play-in format, if they're within 4 games of the 8th place team. Now, likely looking at the Eastern Conference standings, that's not going to take effect. All right, Washington's too far back. But this will take effect in the Western Conference. As anticipated, Portland's surging. They've gotten some players back. They have I wouldn't say they're odds-on favorite, but they're in the lead right now to get that 9 spot. How that will work is 8 will play 9. 9 has to win 2 games to advance. All 8 has to win is 1 game to then claim that 8 seed and go on to play the number 1 team in the Western Conference. And it's turning out to be a beauty, Rafa, because a lot of those teams trying to get into that 9 spot are playing some great basketball. Memphis dealing with some injuries. They're faltering, and it's going to be over the next week or so. Boy, it's been fun to watch, period. It's going to be a dogfight the rest of the way.
You thought that it was going to be just the teams that were invited out of the 8, the 9, 10, 11, and 12 fighting for that play. But Memphis is fighting for their life, winless so far in the bubble. And you mentioned Nurkic and Portland, and Skinny Melo is looking great. and Phoenix is playing like it's going to give somebody a hard time. You can't take your foot off the gas. And the Lakers are in a different situation because they already clinched the spot. And it amazes me how, as much as the players have not forgotten about how to play the game, a lot of our media colleagues have forgotten about how this works when you clinch the spot. You kind of like take your time off, you reset. And some people saying they're worried about this team or worried about the other one. There's some teams that are playing for what's coming, and there's other teams that are playing to get into what's coming. So it's a whole different scenario. In the West, it's funny because you can't really say, let me stay on the 8th spot so I don't have to face the Clippers, or I don't want to face the Lakers, because you don't know where that's going to end up in the middle. So you just got to play the games, and you got to play to be ready when the playoffs starts.
Not to mention, I don't want to play either of those teams. I don't care if you get into 7th. I don't want to play the Lakers or the Clippers, right?
Yeah.
If you're not in 6, you're not going to have an easy time in that first round in the West. What we are going to do here, we're going inside the bubble. Dave McMenamin, NBA beat reporter, is going to tell us all about it, covering these teams. He has seen what this new product looks like, what some of these teams look like after the extended layoff. Let's bring Dave in right now. And into the Orlando bubble we go to visit with this guy, a familiar face, Dave McMenamin. We miss you, my friend. How you been?
Well, this part of my face is familiar. I don't know about the rest. It's covered, but I'm doing well, guys. I'm happy to be in an NBA arena, getting ready to cover an NBA game. It was a long 4.5 months without it, and happy that so far everything's been safe and healthy down here.
Rafa, we've gotten to know Dave, over the last 6 years or so. I'm having trouble picturing what McMenamin in the bubble looks like. Is it a happy McMenamin? Is it a workhorse, just too busy McMenamin? Is he enjoying the bubble, the time alone, or what? How's it been? I mean, you've been up to, how has it been for you?
Social creature. You guys know that I'm a bit of a social creature, and obviously you can't do that because of social distancing, and then also with these long days, you don't want to suppress your immune system by having, enjoying yourself after work, perhaps, with a couple adult beverages. So it's just really been a very simple existence. I'm covering basketball games for 12 hours or so a day, then I'm sleeping for 6 or 7 hours and getting up and covering some Zoom practices and availabilities, and then going to cover games again. So it keeps me on the straight and narrow, I guess you could say. There's not a lot of frills other than the frills that an NBA game would provide.
For those of you that don't know, Dave and I used to be neighbors, and we missed you at Tower Press Building, but now I'm really missing being your neighbor now that you're inside the bubble. John and I were talking about how we dislike the fact that NBA basketball is going on, and we kind of have nothing to do with it other than being fans. But going back to inside the bubble, Dave, how happy, how surprised, or what are your feelings about the competitiveness of the game and the product that has been put on the court so far at the bubble?
So, Rafa, a lot of the teams have played about half their 8-game seeding schedule up to this point, and overall, the level of play to me has been better than what I expected. You see things like the Boston Celtics dropping 149 points in a regulation game. Wow, they're sharp. Teams like Toronto Raptors, I don't feel like have let up at all on either side of the ball. Houston Rockets have come out strong, even with two of their stars arriving to the bubble late. One of them, Russell Westbrook, announcing they had COVID-19. So overall, the level of games have been really good. I think maybe we'll get even better in these last 4 games of the season because we'll actually start to see these playoff races come into play.
Dave, I think before the break, at least from my perspective, I thought the 2 LA teams were head and shoulders might be a little strong, but they were the cream of the crop in the league. And that's no disrespect to Milwaukee or the Eastern teams and what they had done, but the depth and the size and the strength of the LA teams, plus the star power, everything else, just seemed to be the best 2 teams in the league. Obviously, we have this long layoff, and a big question is how will teams look when they come back? We've never dealt with this before. This is unprecedented. Did you feel that way before the break, that those 2 teams were the best in the NBA? And has anything that you've seen since then changed that opinion?
I think I agree with you on the LA teams. I included Milwaukee in that conversation just because Giannis is so dominant and Mike Budenholzer is a wizard of a head coach. Right now, yeah, basically that's still my group. I think I've expanded it to 5. I mentioned those 2 other teams that have impressed me, the Toronto Raptors and Houston Rockets. That would be like kind of the pool I would, if I was a betting man, that would be the pool I would select a champion from. I'd be pretty shocked if it was outside. And again, I mentioned that Celtics dropping 149 in regulation. Maybe they deserve to be in that group as well. But that's the group I see. The Lakers have not looked good. They haven't looked dominant, I should say. They've had moments where they've looked good, but they haven't been the team we're accustomed to. The Clippers are missing Montrezl Harrell. That's a huge part of what they do. Lou Williams is getting back into the swing of things after his extra 10-day quarantine. And Milwaukee lost to Brooklyn. Now, I know that they rested Giannis in the second half, but Brooklyn is considered the G League team that's a part of this experiment. So I think everybody has a lot to prove at this point. Thinking about the Lakers, that's the team I cover the most often. They kind of remind me perhaps of the 2014 Spurs where, if they end up being the champion, they could have like a really hard test in the first round of the playoffs. That Spurs team played a pretty mediocre Dallas Mavericks team in the first round, went 7 games, and eventually they won the NBA Finals, completely dominated the Heat, a really good Heat team, in a 5-game series where, some people say it was the best offensive basketball they've ever seen on a playoff stage. I think if the Lakers are going to get to that point, they're going to probably have a really tough battle in the first round and need to improve as the playoff goes on.
Speaking of the first round, Dave, who do you think has the better shot at the 8th spot in the West? Is it Portland with Skinny Melo and Skinny Nurkic? Is it Memphis still, even though winless, still earning the 8th spot? Or maybe you give a chance to Phoenix, who is undefeated, but a little farther back?
Yeah, well, Rafa, you are certainly qualified to name people Skinny Melo and Skinny Nurkic. You're Skinny Rafa over here, so I appreciate that. Someday I'll get Skinny Dave. I got to work on it a little bit, but I actually think Portland is a team that I would pick. They were in the Western Conference Finals a year ago, so they have the veteran leaders that believe they should get in. Melo's making clutch plays. He made a clutch play in the first game. They won in overtime. He made a clutch play the other night against Houston Rockets. Dame and CJ, we already know what they do. Nurkic and Zach Collins is back as well for them. And Terry Stotts is a really good head coach. If they can get into that play-in tournament against Memphis or against whoever it may be, who knows, maybe New Orleans can actually grab the 8th seed outright and they play them. I would take Portland, and I think Portland would give the Lakers the toughest time out of any of those teams we're discussing.
Outside of that group, all right, your top group, and we talked about Portland, okay? Any other team that you've seen that might create some waves once playoff time arises? I think a lot of people in the East wanted to see what Philadelphia looked like, a team that simply couldn't win on the road. Could they get it together now? Could they be a pain for teams in the East, considering all the talent on that team, particularly in the starting lineup? In the West, we've seen what the youngster in Porter has done with Denver. Denver, a team that's making some waves without 3 of their best players even in the lineup. Is there a team that you've seen? I know it's early, Dave. I know small sample size, only a couple of games here, but you've said yikes, this team looks like it has it together. They're rolling in the right direction. They could be a problem for one of these top-tier teams come postseason time.
Yeah, John, both those teams you just mentioned, particularly Denver, because they've had, Harris out of the lineup and Murray out of the lineup, and Porter Jr. stepped up and been really impressive. But the team, and now they did lose to Toronto, and again, Toronto is one of the teams that jumped up into the pool for me. But Miami Heat, I just like their parts. They have shooting, they have toughness on defense, they have a continuity in the type of basketball they try to play, and I believe in Jimmy Butler as being good enough to be the best player on a championship team. And I think that's kind of a conversation you have to have with these squads. I think Denver, now Greg Popovich called Nikola Jokic the second coming of Larry Bird, which who am I to criticize Greg Popovich for his basketball opinions? But to me, that was slander on one of the top 10 players of all time. I mean, I like Jokic's game, but I don't think he's good enough to lead a team to a championship. I think Jimmy Butler might. And so the Heat with Bam Adebayo, who got my vote for most improved player this year, Nunn and Hero, and the kid from Michigan, his name's escaped me right now, but
Duncan Robinson.
And Eric Spoelstra knows how to get a team prepared in a playoff series. I think Miami is the sleeping giant.
By the way, I would rather Popovich compare Luka to Bird than the Joker, but who am I to say anything? But halfway into this playing tournament, 8 games, right? The Lakers pulled a page from the Yankees playbook the other day when they brought in Lawrence Stanford to recording to introduce the players, just like the Yankees used to do when now I forget the name of the guy.
Bob Shepard, yeah.
Him, Shepard, and you wrote a piece on ESPN.com about it. How do you like the feel right now? Is it starting to feel normal for you? Even though, I mean, you're watching 3-4 games a day, but how does it feel with what different teams are doing different things, I imagine?
Yeah, I got here after the scrimmages occurred. Now, so some people I know that saw the scrimmages where there was less artificial crowd noise pumped in. You didn't see the full warm-ups. They preferred that because they said, I can hear stuff in the gym I wouldn't normally hear. We actually just hear the whistle and screaming from the bench and squeaking of the sneakers. Me personally, I enjoy the atmosphere that the league has created. There are screens that are 20 feet tall surrounding the court, and they're crisp, and the images flow through as if you're in an NBA arena. With advertising and timeout promotions and music and all that stuff like that. And then again, they've personalized it to every team's experience. I thought what the Lakers did with Lawrence Tanter was wonderful, because not just because you're trying to honor the team and the experience they have at Staples Center, but you're honoring a longtime employee. Lawrence Tanter's been with the Lakers for close to 40 years. Everybody knows that call, Laker Girls, whether you know it's Lawrence Tanter's name or not. And I think this is the Lakers acknowledging that, maybe you should know his name. He is a really important part of our team, the same way that Kareem has been and Chick Hearn has been and Kobe Bryant and Phil Jackson. Also in that family of greats is Lawrence Tanter. And, that's why I wanted to write about it, because I was impressed that the team went to those lengths to make sure that they recreated that experience.
Now, I don't know if you're like John during the game that really use a lot of the concession stands, but what do you do for eating during the games? I mean,
I really am like that, actually. They take care of us. We have a little break room, and it's probably three times a day they switch out the meals, and that means you can double up 3 times a day. So I'm having lunch, I'm having second lunch, I'm having pre-dinner, I'm having post-dinner. There's these Disney Mickey Mouse head ice cream sandwiches.
ooh.
I mean, again, we're not saying Skinny Dave yet, Rafa. I gotta get back out with the Tremont workout crew, and they take care of me. But it's the food's been good. Again, I can't emphasize enough the lengths that the league went to put this together. And I think when you read about it or when you see it on TV, you can kind of get a grasp of it. But when you see it in person, everything is simple, but it's also really detailed and thought out. And so, I just can't say enough. It's been really impressive.
Rafa, get that NBA update number so we can report McMenamin for triple dipping into the in the media room. Get you quarantined, get you a week off or something. 10 days off. Hey, but for what it's worth, you talk about I'm with you on the ambiance. I mean, I think it looks fantastic on your network, on the national networks. It has been as close to normal as you could want. I mean, as close to as they can do it. And it sounds great, and you can lose yourself in the game just like they want you to do. Last thing before we let you go, and you're talking about the bubble a little bit. What's one or two things that nobody could possibly know that we don't know about the bubble that surprised you, that's strange, that you have to get used to, that it would amaze people that this is what is going on here in the bubble and how we're living over these, for you, 11 days so far now?
Yeah. So one small thing is, I'm in the yellow tiered bubble. I will move into the green tier in late August. But in the yellow tier, there's a lot of the ESPN and TNT broadcast crew. And two of the more notable broadcasters that work for either network are the Van Gundy brothers. And so I've come down to the lobby of my hotel on several occasions, and they are chopping it up, together, like they're back under the same roof, probably for the same time since high school. Like, I doubt the Van Gundy brothers have spent this much time together since high school. And so that to me is like, wow, what a strange thing. Like, if it wasn't for the NBA and for the coronavirus and for a myriad of things, a league partnership with Disney, et cetera, would we have ever seen the Van Gundy brothers back together? And so that kind of warms the heart. And then beyond that, I think just like the really cool thing for me was opening night, Lakers-Clippers, seeing the collection of NBA players, guys like Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, Rudy Gay, DeMar DeRozan, all come to the gym on their off night to watch the game. And, I've been covering the league for a while now, and you guys have been covering the league for a while now. You know what it's like if, say, we go into a opposing city on a road trip, you might land at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. There could be a game at 8, but guys want to go to the hotel and get a workout. It's really rare for a guy in season to go watch another team play. It rarely happens. I can maybe count on one hand the amount of times I recall LeBron doing it over the years that I've covered him. And to see that, and it wasn't just opening night, but it's happened to other games as well. And see them, they're not caring about what they're wearing. They're not wearing like the runway fashion statement coming to the game. They're wearing a hoodie, slides, and they're just watching the game and getting into it. That to me is such a cool wrinkle to this bubble experience. And I think that'll be the type of stuff, especially as the games matter in the playoffs. I think you'll see the players coming more often because they'll have less games, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's going to be a cool element as this thing goes forward.
I kind of smell the next number one best-selling book by Dave McMenamin. I don't know. I'll buy it.
The last one only went up to number 11, so we got to get to number 1. So I appreciate it. We'll take number 1, yeah, for sure.
Hey, Dave, great job.
11 because it's number 1 twice. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that works.
Yeah, always rely on Rafa to rationalize anything for you. If you have any issues, call him. He'll figure out how to make it work. Dave McMenamin, great stuff. We love having you on. We love seeing you again, my friend. Keep up the great work and hang in there in the bubble down there in Orlando.
Thanks, J. Mike. And Rafa, say hello to my friends at Artefino Cafe for me, please.
I will do so.
All right.
For our featured guest, Dave McMenamin, for Rafa, I'm John. This has been CavsHQ Happy Hour presented by Budweiser.